word on this computer. Okay, welcome to Beyond Nagging, helping parents help their kids write good college applications. It's all based on this book, the Common App Handbook. Well, you can't really see it because of the virtual background, but there it is on sale at Amazon.com. That's all the selling I'm going to do tonight. No, wait, I'll do a little bit more. I lied. I also run Common App boot camps, which leads students step by step through the whole process of writing applications through the Common App, as well as colleges that don't take the Common App, their versions, which are always very similar. Okay. Excuse me. Tonight, can you guys see in your chat window, I put the agenda. Sometimes people tell me that when they come in after I put it there, excuse me, they can't see it. So I'll just put it in one more time. Basically, excuse me, figures, as soon as I log on, I get a cough. We're going to be talking largely about supplements tonight. Feel free to have a grown-up beverage. I have pure grape juice, you know, and pure water, whatever you like. It's all good. If you have questions, please don't stand on ceremony. Just unmute yourself and interrupt. That's what this is about. I pretty much know what I'm doing in and around the Common App, and I expect that you don't, and that's why you're here. And so interrupt with any and all questions. I'm going to be sharing my screen throughout the class to illustrate what I'm talking about. Hopefully you can both see this is what the Common App looks like. In the chat window, you'll see I'm going to be talking about writing supplements, how writing supplements is very different from writing the common part of the Common App. I'm going to talk about the variety of early application programs and the strategies that they suggest. And then I'm going to wrap up by talking about, excuse me, college visits and interviews. It's a lot, but I talk fast. If I talk too fast, slow me down. And before we do any of that, I just want to circle back. Last class, which is a couple weeks ago, we missed a couple due to weather and other mishigas. But we talked about essay writing. And I want to emphasize the most important part, especially to tell parents about essay writing, is please don't encourage your kids to write about some impressive activity that you feel isn't well represented earlier in the application. Now, that is a perfectly legitimate and understandable goal. I think we, no, okay, there we are. Right, and it makes sense, but it's the wrong way to go about it. I'm going to illustrate where you can throw, let's say you know your kid did some great community service project and they wrote about it in the activities section, but you feel, you know what, there was so much more to that that could possibly be indicated in only the 150 characters they give you. I'm going to suggest that she write her her essay about it, or I'll use he, because both of you guys who are here have boys. So I'm gonna encourage him to write his essay about it. Again, understandable, but not good advice. Here's why. The essay needs to be likable more than anything. The goal of everything up to the essay is to brag, to be impressive about your studies, your academic achievements, your honors, your activities, your athletics, your awards there. That's all bragging. And I tell students all the time, it's like a resume. Nobody sounds like they're bragging on a resume because everyone knows resume is a brag sheet. Same thing with the forms leading up to the essay. But when you brag in the essay, you know what it sounds like? Bragging. And is bragging likable? No, never. We've never heard anyone brag and said, I really like that person. And so, so what do you do if there's more bragging to be done before you get to the essay? That's a great question. I'm going to illustrate that now. So if you can't see my screen, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll assume you can. I'm going to log in. I have a dummy account under Dr. Yo. So I'm going to use my dummy account here. Okay. Now, let me explain one of the big confusions about the Common App. Notice the whole thing is called the Common App. And then some genius who designed this interface said, hey, let's make one of the tabs called the Common App. Like what? So part of the Common App is the Common App? Yup. And believe me, that's confusing. What the Common App tab refers to are the truly common parts of the Common App that go everywhere. Okay, so when you actually submit, you submit either from my colleges, like let's say I'm going to submit to Bates, right? I won't even get a submit button until I'm done with everything else, and I'm not. But eventually, when I'm done and I see green checks here, here, and here, I'll get a submit button. And when I finally submit, after I enter my credit card, kids always, it's funny. They say, oh my God, I'm nervous, Dr. Yo. What if I accidentally click the submit button? Totally understandable. But unless you also accidentally enter 16 digits of your parents' Visa card, the expiration date, the CCV code, your billing address, and phone number, you're not going to accidentally submit anything, so you don't have to worry. But you submit from the supplements, and it pulls in everything from the Common App tab. Now, here is a great hidden little beautiful thing that not a lot of people know, hence hidden. The writing tab is mostly about your essay, and you put your essay in this box here. But below this are two other tabs. One is if you ever got in trouble, it's your chance to tell your side of the story, which of course you have to do if you ever did get in trouble. And then there's additional information that a lot of people blow off. Now, by default, when you come to this page, it looks like this, and it doesn't look like much. But one is, and I think, Renee, you were right on the ball. I'm pretty sure it was you said, I heard that there might be a COVID question. And there is, but it's totally optional. And I've had no kid yet who felt it was helpful to do it, but it could be. You know, if you had very specific circumstances that impact you, say you have a live-in grandparent who's in her 80s, and you took primary care while both of your parents were off working, that would be something cool to write there. But this one is very often used, this second one, which basically is a catch-all. If you say yes, look what happens. A 650-word text box pops up. This is only the tip of the iceberg. A lot of space here, even more, 650 words. Okay, so what you can use this for as a spillover, let's say you have more than 5 honors. Well, there's only spot for 5 honors. Now what? I have to choose my best 5? Nope. You can put 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 right here in the spillover box, the additional information. Let's say I have 12 activities. Do I have to stop with 10, which is how many? Nope. I can put activity 11, 12, 13 here. This is also where you could say, I feel my application would be incomplete if I didn't elaborate a little bit more on that very impressive community service thing my mom is nagging me to write about. And that's where you put it, not in the essay. The essay, you want to tell a story, and sure, if impressive things fly under the radar in passing because they're relevant to tell the story, fine, that's where you put it. But you don't want to sound like you're bragging. And I read many essays in my book, and in this book, 50 Harvard application, successful Harvard application essays that illustrate how you go about doing that. But let's move on to tonight's topic, which is supplements. Okay, so when I do my boot camps and when kids start writing the Common App, and no pressure, but I hope to see Jack Annan in a boot camp. I know Renee's kid is coming next week. Here's what we do. We do all these. So we do the profile, the family, and these are much more elaborate than you think. Look at, there's a lot of subtabs, education especially. You know, you've got to put in all your current year classes. I've talked about this in prior classes. You can see the videos if you're interested, activities, and then the essay. So what we do are the common parts that go everywhere. Once that's done, you go to the dashboard or my colleges, where you will see these are my dummy colleges, my fake colleges. You can have up to 20. Now, just because they're here does not mean you're automatically going to be applied. When you click submit, it's one college at a time. So I tell kids, when in doubt, put it on. If it's not on here, you can't apply using the Common App. If it's on here, you can apply using the Common App, but you're not obligated to. So obviously, put it on and decide. Now, there are 2 types. Let me get to one with both types here. Some schools, like you saw Bates, only has one type of question, and they're called questions. And the questions are almost always the same. I'll illustrate with Brown because they have questions and writing prompts, meaning extra essays. Now, I always tell kids sometimes, you know, college administrators don't read directions and they screw this up when they fill their part out and they put essays under questions. And so you kind of have to scour the questions. Often they put it under academics and they ask you an essay question. You're like, crap, look at this. Here's a little essay. oh, this is just please inform us of exams and scores. It's not really an essay, but you could find essay questions here. But the questions can be filled out in 5 minutes. However, that doesn't mean they're unimportant and you should fill them out quickly. These are uber important. Here's how I see it, and I'm pretty good at this. I get almost everyone into a top 3 school, is the common part of the Common App, this tab here, is the qualifier. That's what they use to decide. Are you going to flunk out or can you handle the work? Are you going to be a contributing member based on your high school activities and your school spirit? Or are you going to be in the library covering your work with blinders on? If they like you well enough to say, yup, we think you're going to fly here academically and you're going to contribute to our environment, now the tiebreaker, and tiebreakers sometimes involve thousands, I think are made through the supplements. If you think about it, these are questions that the specific school's admissions committee is asking. These questions under the Common App are generic. Now, they've given their blessing on all of them by saying we're going to accept the Common App as our application, but they're saying that's not enough, we want more. And here's the more that they want. The most important question is this one. What do you think you're going to study? It's not binding, so kids get all nervous. Oh my God, I don't know, doctor. Well, just pick one. Pick one you think you might do now. And, I'll give them advice. There can be strategizing. For example, if you're going to go, a lot of kids today want to focus in business. So I think in a lot of schools, everyone's saying, and if that's your truth and you're backing that up in your Common App, then you got to go there. But let's say you don't have much more impressive history surrounding business than you do about, say, English literature. You could say that you want to major in English literature, and this is very gamesmanshipy, I know, but that's what I'm paid to do, tell you how to get in, and then you can decide what you want to do to get there. It can be a good strategy to say, oh no, I want to major in English because there will be far less competition. Is that a little sneaky? Yeah, but these are our children. We'll be sneaky for our children. I'm sure you won't disagree. If we have to. We're not breaking laws here. We're not lying. We're not bribing. We're not cheating like the guy in jail. We're just playing the game according to strategies based on the rules that you guys set up. Okay, so this is important, particularly because, let me just backtrack a second. The key theme for writing supplements that is entirely different from the Common App is the Common App tabs are all about you. I tell the kids, the spotlight's on you. It's your grades, your schools, your mommy, your daddy, your siblings, your high school, your activities, your GPA, your honors, all you, your essay, color commentary, and likable qualities about you. The supplements are almost the diametric opposite. The supplements feature questions, as you'll see, about why do you want to go here? And the emphasis really is why do you want to go here? The biggest mistake kids make when they come to supplements is they write the same thing for everyone, answering the question, why do you want to go to college, right? And I tell kids, hey, let's say a boy or a girl wants to ask you to the prom, and you have 4 or 5 of them wanting to ask you to the prom, and so you decide you're going to ask each of them a question. Why do you want to go to the prom with me? And imagine they said, well, you have a torso. I wanted to go to the prom with someone with a torso, and 2 legs, because I was hoping to dance, and you have 2 legs. And you get my point. Like, that's not going to impress anybody. It's like nothing else, nothing else specifically about me, right? So what you want to do is tell the colleges their best qualities, right? And that's what you love about them. And how do you find out those best qualities? Good question. Glad you asked. The number one source of intel is the website. And the number one source of website information is under academics. Every school, university.edu, has a academics tab. And under that, they're going to say departments, programs, courses, majors, minors. And there you find out their educational philosophy in the neuroplasticity department. And you find out all kinds of academic information. That's the number one reason why you want to go there. But you also can find out, hey, you have an internship in neuroplasticity in Boston that they don't have anywhere else, and that's one of the main reasons why I want to go to your school. Now you have their attention. Or you have this athletic club program that a lot of people don't have, and I did that in high school. or I can continue pursuing these 3 passions that you already know I had from my Common App, and I can continue them like I was in a Boys and Girls Club, let's say, in high school, and I notice you have one in your environment, and that would be a no-brainer for me. Now you have their attention. These are specific details about the school that you want to plug into. So the spotlight in the Common App is on you. The spotlight in the supplements is on them. And so, like, for example, here are some of the most commonly asked questions in the supplements, and then I'll illustrate a couple right here. But okay, from Connecticut, Central Connecticut. Why are you interested in Central Connecticut State University? Tufts has it down to a science. 2 words. Why Tufts? UPenn says, how will you explore your intellectual and academic interests at UPenn? And what I really like about that question is they focus, if kids start writing about community service and athletics and extracurriculars, they just got rejected because it specifically says intellectual and academic pursuits. And even though UPenn goes on record by putting those words explicitly in the question, I tell kids, imagine they're there for all of them. Always lead with intellectual and academic interests. Why? Because no matter where you're applying, I know one thing for sure. It's an institution of higher learning. It's not an institution of higher community service. Not that that's a bad thing. It's not an institution of higher sports. It's not an institution of higher extracurricular activities. It's an institution of higher learning. So tell them what you want to learn. That's the way to get their attention right out of the box. Then you can talk about other things, right? Oh, thank you. Sorry, I just quickly say thank you. Somebody just donated to my walkathon, so that's a good thing. I walk for brain cancer every year because my paternal grandfather died on the operating table before they figured out how to remove brain tumors. Anyway, so the questions are quick and easy, but, oh wait, I was reading these. I'll get back to the question in a second. Yale says, what is it about Yale that has led you to apply? In interviews, the most commonly asked question is, tell me, why do you want to go here? So it's very good to start with that question, and you get your ducks in a row from the website. Where else can you get your intel? Good question. And this is mom's and dad's responsibility, I think. You get them at the info session. Here's what I tell families to do when they visit schools. Like when you go to the info session, which, by the way, you have to do. And what if you say, but Mike, everyone in my family for 5 generations, we don't need to go. We know all about the school. Too bad, go anyway, because they take attendance. And one of the things, hi, Stephanie. Stephanie's one of my cohort members in my graduate school, so I'm always happy to see her. She has twins going through the boot camp. So I'm just talking about supplements. And I forgot what I was saying. Something about these questions of why you want to go here. And you always want to, the big point is you always want to lead with academics. Oh yeah. Then you can get to what I call soft factors, right? Then you can get to things like my girlfriend goes there, or all my best friends go there, or they have a great extracurricular activity that I can plug into from high school. Those are all helpful, but they're secondary, not primary. Primary is academic and intellectual interest. That's what colleges and universities and institutions of higher learning are primarily about. Okay, so that's what these questions are about. Activities, they typically, right, so look, here's a great example of an essay question that comes where it doesn't belong. It should be down here under writing supplement. But here it is under questions where, and I can tell you there's a history behind this. This question, please elaborate on one of your activities. This would be a great place if you were a mom who said, hey, your 150 characters, it was good, but there's a lot more to say about that activity. Why didn't you say all that? You can put it here. Or Stephanie, I was illustrating, you can also put it in the additional information tab under writing in the Common App section of the Common App. But this used to be required. It used to be a required 1,000 word characters, which is about 150 words. So this is a basically used to be required on every Common App. And then I guess some schools said, we don't really need that. It's not that important to us. So the Common App made an executive decision to remove it for everybody. And some schools said, but wait, we really like that question. So they put it on their supplement. So unlike the personal essay on the Common App, which is personal, which suggests anecdotal, imaginative, creative, it's a lot. It's a lot. And that's why everybody dreads the personal essay. Here on the supplement, it's just pretend you're a professional, right? You don't need any color comments. You want to know about my itinerary? I got there at 6, then I did this until 6:15. You're just very workaday, workmanlike, tell them the story and out, right? They just want you to elaborate. Now, does that mean you can't inject any personality? Of course not. But that's not the goal here. The goal is to just answer the freaking question. That is not the goal of the personal essay. I tell kids the last thing you do, and believe me, I'm an English teacher, I said the last thing you do is read the prompts and answer the questions. That is not what's important here. What's important here is you being able to tell a story that makes you lovable, or at a minimum, likable, and then you figure out what question you answered after. And if it turns out you didn't answer any, you can come kill me. No, there's always the option number 7, a topic of your own choice. So no matter what you write, you win. You'll get a question, okay? So, and then there's context. Usually they ask, did your mom or your daddy go here? Kind of thing, right? Have you tied? Have anyone ever gone there? And, fairly simple. But the important thing is to try to choose a concentration that makes sense of what you told them here. So what did you tell them here that might indicate a potential major? We talked about this in a previous class, but I'll tell you, in the education tab, there is this current or most recent year's classes. So if you lead with AP, English, and language and composition, it would probably be a good idea to do that if, in fact, you're going to major in English or journalism or writing or some writing-intensive major, because you're leading with that. And you're saying, here's my most intellectually, academically appealing class. Why wouldn't I put that first if I'm an intelligent person? I'm not going to start with woodshop or chorus. Not that woodshop and chorus aren't significant activities, but they're not going to be as impressive to an admissions committee as AP, English, language, and composition. Okay, so that's one place you put it. Also in your honors. If you are leading with AP Spanish and you got an honor of being in the National Honor Society in Spanish, and then you say my intended major is International Cultural Studies, and I want to spend a year abroad in Barcelona, now you're gelling, you're coming together. They're feeling like, yeah, we get that. That makes perfect sense. We believe you. And it all works together. Okay. Now, I guess that's really all I want to say about the writing supplements. That's how they're fundamentally different from the common part of and it's important because, I have a blog, if you want to look it up, it's called A Brief History of College Courtship. And it basically tells the story of how in the 80s when I applied, we were all coached to tell everyone you're my first choice. I'm very interested in your school. And then interest morphed in the 90s and early 21st century into demonstrated interest. So sort of like every time you said they got onto you, it was like the boy trying to get the girl, oh, you're my favorite girl and you're the prettiest and the smartest. And the girl's like, bullshit. And, that's kind of like what the colleges are like, bullshit. Like, prove it. So you have to demonstrate interest. That's why you sign your name legibly when you attend the info session. You sign your name legibly when you go on the tour. Oh, I remembered what I forgot when Stephanie came on. When you go to the info session, the boys and girls sit in the front row, nothing in their hand, and they're making eye contact with the presenter. And as soon as it's over, they bounce up to the presenter, and at a minimum, they say with a big smile, thank you so much. That was amazing. I'm so excited about UConn now. I thought I was going to apply, but now it might even be my first choice. By the way, do you have a business card so that if I have any questions that arise as my application unfolds, my whole process unfolds, I have somebody I can email. And they'll say, yes, well-spoken young lady or young man, here's my card. Meanwhile, mom and dad are in the back during the dog and pony show writing down as much as they can, because what do they do with these info sessions? If you've ever been to one, they basically give a litany of what they think are the best qualities of their school, right? Why, from their perspective, why are they doing the info session? It's not to give you information. It's to sell you on applying. Let's be honest, right? It's a home run. If there's 50 people in the room, 50 students in the room and they get 50 applications, that's a home run. That's what a successful info session does. They want to convert a potential applicant to an actual applicant. So how do they do that? Well, they're going to try and bring out what they think are their best thing. And that's the perfect thing to feed back to them when they say, why do you want to go here? And you're like, well, I learned at the info session that every Thursday night, there's a special ice cream bash for only freshmen where they get to have as much ice cream as they want. And I love ice cream, but also share the most interesting thing they learned that week as a way to knit the freshman class together. That they should do something like that at Harvard in the freshman union. And it was really cool. That's how I got to meet a lot of my classmates. That's a special, they don't trumpet that on their website, but boy, if you know that, it sure sounds like you're demonstrating your interest. And it also puts a check in the third box in this history of college courtship. It goes from interest to demonstrated interest to what now the standard is called informed interest. It's a much higher bar than when the four of us were applying, right? If you were anything like me, you applied to schools because your parents told you had to, and you didn't know a heck of a lot about them, right? That was just how it was in the 80s, or maybe you knew a lot more than I did, but most of my friends, I couldn't tell you any difference between Harvard, Dartmouth, Yale, and Brown. They were just really good schools, and I really wanted to go to one of them to make mommy and daddy proud. Now that's that, they'll just laugh at you and show you the door, the exit door. What you have to do now is convince them that you know enough about the school to have made an informed decision that that's where you want to go. You have to demonstrate that you're informed about the major. So, you know, I like to say as an educator, there's no such thing as stupid questions. Well, between us parents, there are stupid questions you don't want your kid to ask. Like, can I double major in psychology and neuroscience? Well, you know, 5 minutes on the website, you can find out if they offer double majors. And I won't scare kids, but I'm like, do your research. You don't want to come off sounding like this is your first 5 minutes thinking about this school. I say every night before you have an interview, you spend 45 minutes to an hour on the website. You might find out, oh, such and such a literary figure is coming to school, and you drop that in back. Oh, I just heard that so-and-so will be here in the fall. That will be so exciting, right? That's very likable, and it convinces them that you're demonstrating informed interest. That's what they want you to do. All right, I'm going to move on to the next topic, assuming there are no questions. I'm going to try and wrap up in the next 10 minutes.
So, Mike, actually, I asked a question just now. Just wondering if you know if there's a difference with the virtual tours.
That's a great question. I've been taking a lot of them. I've taken some. My daughter made an astute observation a few years ago where she said, Dad, you know, the crappier the college by reputation, the better their website. Which makes sense to me. Like there's some no-name schools out in the country where you can get in like a simulated helicopter flyover and get dropped off in various buildings. It's kind of cool. So fun. What I would say to you though is the difference between live and virtual is the human contact. Now, sometimes I've participated in virtual college fairs where I was expected to be in a room. And kids would walk down the hallway and they'd see college of interest, come in and ask any questions about the college process. And I would be there, a real person with real contact information, to have eyeball to eyeball communication the way we're doing now. That's just as good as being there. But if the virtual tour is you and a computer, not just as good because you don't get the contact. And sometimes that can make the difference. Having a name of a person to be in touch with and say, I know I submitted my application in November, but I'm so excited to tell you, I just got voted most valuable player on my soccer team, and there was no way to say that. Can you please add that? You know, and at least you know somebody, the regional director usually, who's on the voting admission, has that information, right? So personal contact can be the straw that, you know, I don't say straw, but it can push you over the fence into the accept pile. I always tell kids when you visit schools, I'm going a little out of order, but hey, welcome to my world. One of the things that not everybody is told to do is sit in on classes. I think that's the most important thing to do. I mean, from the perspective of you evaluating the school. It's not more important than signing up for an info session or signing up for a tour because you got to do that to demonstrate your interest. But I tell kids like this. If you're deciding to buy a car and you're not sure, but you have an opportunity to test drive the car, wouldn't you test drive the car? And not one kid ever said, nah, I don't need to. It's right. Sitting in on a class is test driving the car. I tell kids, let's say you want to major in psychology and you sit in on Psychology 101, the introductory class, and you're like, oh my God, I can't follow anything. Well, good to know before you get there. Who wants to be miserable in class for 4 years in college? On the other hand, you might go off to a school like my son did, where, 10 minutes into the midterm review, they pull out lacrosse sticks and start throwing the ball across the classroom while the professor's there. That too may be off-putting for the opposite reason. So you want to make sure you like the car and it drives well for you. But another reason is you never know what's going to happen. I had a girl, in fact, she just texted me an hour ago. So funny to tell me she's excited. She's getting married and they're buying a puppy. So she graduated from Tufts a couple of years ago, and I encouraged her to sit in on classes. Well, she did. And this girl has big brass things, and she raised her hand and asked the question, right? I mean, Stephanie's a college professor. Can you imagine some high school person asking a question in class? I think that's amazing. Hi, Trisha. Loving Ryan. Thank you for joining. Her son's taking my class this week. In any event, she asked the question. And after class, she bounced up and to thank the professor. And he said, I'm so impressed with you. Thank you for asking that very good question. Well, he sent an email over to the admissions department, and lo, she got in. Now, might she have gotten in anyway? Absolutely. But we know she did get in, and she did that. So sitting in on classes, that's a great thing. What you do is you typically sign up for tours and info sessions online, and then you call the school and you say, I've just registered for a tour and info session on such and such a date, and I've got the whole day off from school because it's a 2-hour drive. So I would love to also take an opportunity to sit in on a class. I'm thinking of majoring in Russian literature. Got anything in that general area for me? And usually what they'll do is they'll say, we will put together a list of classes where professors have said it's okay to come in, and we'll have it ready for you when you arrive at the admissions office at 9 a.m. on the date. And that is great, again, because it lets you evaluate the sort of academic level of the school. And it also is great because it gives you what to say when they say, why do you want to go here? I mean, imagine you said, well, I sat in on the Russian literature class with Professor Dostoevsky, and it was exactly what I envisioned for my college experience. I think you get their attention. That's a really good thing. Okay, now I want to show you guys a really cool feature that's new as of last year on the Common App. If you go to the dashboard and click this, and there are very few cool features, so this is rare. You click application requirements. It's not all going to fit on one screen, but I'm going to widen my screen as much as possible. It basically generates for your schools this beautiful chart. And this beautiful chart tells you their variety of programs, ED, ED2. I'm going to explain these in a minute, EA, EA2, REA, rolling and regular, all the costs involved, their test policy, and how many recommendations they require. So this is a beautiful sort of information central. And what's really cool is 2 weeks before the deadline, they'll turn red. You'd be like, hello, ding dong, you have a deadline coming up. That's a beautiful thing for teenagers. Now, let me quickly go through this. ED, early decision 2, early action 2, restricted early action. Early decision gives you the best chance of getting in with from the perspective of admissions rate. If a school's overall admissions rate is 16%, their early decision rate could be 30%, which, you know, if you're math challenged, I'll help you. That's twice as good a chance as getting in. All right, I'd rather be vying for 3 out of 10 than 1.5 out of 10. Okay, the downside, the cost for that benefit is it's binding. You absolutely sign a thing, and I've never heard of anyone getting out of it, except in one case. You can get out of ED if you get an EA acceptance with a financial aid package that is much more lucrative than the ED. And the irony, the catch-22 there is they usually don't even give you your financial aid package offer until months after it's too late. But occasionally it can happen. And if your kid, say, gets $10,000 per year for $40,000 is enough, even if you're Donald Trump, where they'll say, yeah, we'll let you wiggle out of your ED contract for 40 grand. Other than that, it's binding. ED2 is if you get deferred or rejected from your ED, you get another shot, right? The only difference between the early programs and regular, you'll notice, is the deadlines are earlier. Although ED2, the deadlines are about the same, and they tell you within a month. But it's binding, so you got to be careful. EA is the same business, only it's not binding. So I tell students, any school that offers EA, you're insane if you don't take advantage of it. There's only one good reason not to take advantage of an EA, and that's if you're so busy in the fall that you can't get your apps done. Or if you get them done, they're going to be shoddy because you're so busy being captain of the soccer team or doing whatever it is you do in the fall. But there's no downside to getting in. It's not binding. EA2, same business. If you're deferred or rejected, you get another shot. That's rare. As you can see in these schools, not one of them offers it. Usually a lot more offer EA. This is unusual, but just a small, sample. Restriction EA, I tell the kids, if ED and EA had a baby, it would be REA. So the ED genes are, you can only choose one. So Yale, for example, or Harvard, look at that, has restricted early action. They're like, if you're going to apply to us early action, it's not going to be binding, but nobody else. Right? If you're going to go to me, with me to the prom, you can't dance with anybody else. That's my rules, like it or leave it. The early admissions genetics in it is it's not binding. So you get, it's a cross, okay? So you get it, it's complicated. When we applied, it was, early or regular, much easier. Any questions about the early programs? I also would recommend that you actually look into it. There are exceptions to every rule. So you do your research. Usually the acceptance rates for the programs are on Naviance. If they're not, they're often on the school's website. If you use Google and you can't find it, nothing wrong with calling the admissions office. You don't have to identify yourself. You can block your caller ID, not that the secretary cares, and just say, I'm wondering about the statistics on your early admissions program. How much higher is the acceptance rate? And you can find out whether it's worth, especially if it's ED, right? And a lot of kids ask, well, if it's a long shot, should we use it because it improves our chance? But then it wouldn't be a waste if it's really a long shot. And these are really thoughtful questions, right? Yes, it bolsters your chance, but yes, you could be wasting it. If you have a 2.9 and you're like, I'm going to take a chance at Brown ED, you're wasting your ED. No one gets into Brown with a 2.9. That's just a fact. But if they're looking for, say, 3.9 and higher, and you have a 3.75, now that could be, the help you needed to get over the fence. So, I'm happy to help talk it through with you. You guys are just as smart grown-ups as I am, hopefully having your grown-up beverage, and you can figure this out too, and I'm happy to talk about it. And okay, last thing I'll talk about, and then if you have questions, I'll entertain them. Otherwise, we'll say goodnight. And that is interviews. Interviews can be very helpful. I feel like interviews can help and they can't really hurt. So unless you know your kid is painfully shy and is going to just answer in monosyllables, I would encourage him or her to have an interview. Again, it may not help, but it's very unlikely that it'll hurt, and it could help. I mean, everyone has a great story. Everyone has a horror story. Everyone has a happy story. I'll share both of mine. My happy story was at Brown, which was EA in 1982, and my first choice, because I was so sick of working so hard and pleasing teachers and getting A's that I was so enamored of Brown's program, which they still have. It's one of the few schools where you can take every single class you want, pass, fail. And I thought, that is made for me. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of college. And I went in for my interview, and I happen to be a jazz trumpet player. And the interviewer happened to be a huge jazz fan. Lucky. And he asked me about my extracurricular activities, and I said I played jazz trumpet. And he told me after he was testing me, they like to test you without you knowing it. And he said, who do you listen to? Now, most kids will, not know who the really good jazz players are. And they'll say things like Weather Report and Spyro Gyro. And not that these are bad bands or Chuck Mangione, but they're like popular radio crossover jazz. But, he was looking for like Miles Davis, Wynton Marsalis, Freddie Hubbard, Tom Harrell, and like the real greats of jazz. And I happen to know that because that happened to be my thing. Did I deserve it? Not really. It was lucky. Come right into Brown. Princeton was a different story. At Princeton, I'll never forget it. The guy brings me into his office, covered with books. He was a classic professor, beard, pipe, and he sits me down. And I can tell he's American, but he spoke in this fake British accent. And he said, "So, Miss Yeomans, we're going to have thousands of applicants at Princeton this year. What makes you think you're so special, Would you imagine? You're 17? So I also had big brass, and I was very, very, what's the word, rebellious. So I shit all over that interview, pardon my French. But I made reference to pseudo-intellectuals who affect fake British accents, and I did not get in. And boy, were my parents upset when I shared that story. But, live and learn. I didn't have a coach. I was not coached. I was told one thing: tell everybody they're your first choice. So you'll do a much better job preparing your kids. But what I would do is a few things. Number one, first understand this. There are 2 types of interviews and 3 possible answers to the question, can I sign up for an interview? If you can't sign up online, when you call the school to say, I've just registered for a tour and info session and I'd like to sit in on classes, I would also like to have an interview, they will say, we don't offer interviews anymore, they're cost prohibitive. That's a fairly common answer. The second most common answer will be, we don't do campus interviews, but we do alumni interviews. So if you give us your name, we will have an alumna or an alumnus contact you by email to set up a time. And then I always tell the kids, if you get a call or an email and they say, hi, I'm going to be your alumni interviewer, please come to my house in such and such a time. That rarely happens. They usually suggest Starbucks or Dunkin' or some public place. But I tell kids, especially girls, but boys too in 2020, just say, my parents won't let me go to your house. I don't know you. I'm happy to, but I'm a good little kid. So can we meet in a public place? Right? And that's very professional. You want to meet in a public place. Nobody needs to be meeting in some stranger's house in 2020. The third option is they will say, like at Quinnipiac, when I went with my son, and he took a tour and went to the info session, he got interviewed by an admissions committee member that day. And that's a beautiful thing too. That's the best case scenario. If you actually get a voting member of the admissions committee to sit down and interview you, that's lovely. Now, nobody knows how much they count. And again, I say it's very unlikely going to keep you out. It could keep you in. I have a list and I'm happy to provide it to you. The kids who are in my boot camp get it anyway as one of their handouts. But if you end up not signing your kid up, just send me an email and I'll send you my college trust interview guide. It includes 21 of the most commonly asked questions, and you can practice with your kid or give your kid and say, practice with your best friend or make your sister ask you these questions and practice it. And I tell kids, don't just go through and say, oh, I know what I'll say, because everyone's had the experience where they're like studying for the essay test and like, all right, if the teacher asks, what are the causes of the French? I got that. And then the teacher asks, what are the causes of, and you're like, ah, shit, I thought I had this, I don't have it. Right? You actually have to practice it once or twice to know that you have it. A couple of questions I'll just share with you, a couple of advice and we'll be done. Words of advice. If they throw you a curveball, by the way, this year there's going to be a new question. I'm absolutely sure of it. Everyone's going to ask, what did you do during the school shutdowns when COVID broke out? And so just have a ready answer for that. And any answer is good other than I became king of the Xbox universe. Right? They're not impressed with video game playing, unless, of course, you're using Python and Java to code games, then talk about becoming king of the Xbox universe. That's career-oriented. But if they throw you a curveball and they ask you a question that's not on the list that you completely didn't expect, and you're like, oh, crap, here's what you do. You look them right in the eye and you say, that's a really interesting question. No one's ever asked me that before. Do you mind if I take a minute to think about it? And you know, as grown-ups, no grown-ups can say, no, answer right now, no thinking, right? Of course they're going to say, sure. and they're going to respect you for the poise and confidence that you have in asking for a moment to think. That will be in your favor. Last thing, everyone ends with the same question. If you've ever given interviews, you end with this question too. And the question is, so do you have any questions for me? All right? And there's two good answers. One is better than the other. The less good answer is, no, thank you, ma'am. I don't have any questions because I'm so interested in the University of Pennsylvania that I spend a half hour every night on the website. All my questions are answered, or something like that. No, because I have a really good reason why not. But better than that is yes. And this is a two-parter, unless you already know the answer to the first part, in which case don't ask it. Well, the first part is, did you go here? Now, you may know that. They may introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Mrs. So-and-so, and I was in the class of 1987, and I've been here ever since because I love Dartmouth, or whatever. I had a woman who worked for me who did graduate with my brother in the class of 1987, and she actually helped me write this college trip success interview guide. Anyway, if they say yes or no, either way, if they say yes, you say, well, great. What do you think is the best part about this school that only kids who go here would know? If they say, no, I didn't go here, but I've been in the admissions department for 7 years, you say, well, great. What do you think the kids who go here would say if you ask them what they think the best parts about this college are that only kids who go here would know? And again, you get opportunities to find out about the freshman ice cream party every week, or you get to find out about the seminars that are only available to sophomores, or you find out some specialty information that not only gets you excited about the school, but it also gives you what to say when they ask you, why do you want to go here in the essay? And also, it makes you likable, because let's face it, you all know this, and kids know this too. If they want to get any grown-up off, any teacher, off on a tangent, so they don't have to learn that day. Can you tell us that story again about the time in college? And, who doesn't like talking about the good old college days? It's very winning and likable. So that's some of my interview advice. I think I hit the points I wanted to. We've gone a little over, but I'm happy to take questions if you guys have any. All right, I'll assume we don't have any. I will thank you very much for attending. Be doing it again next week. The topics are on my website. I tell you if I knew off the top of my head, but oh wait, here, I do. It's the page is right up. You're welcome, staff. Next week's topics are working with your school's guidance counselor to maximize your chances of acceptance, and then to-dos and not to-dos during the interminable waiting period after you submit. That's next week, August 18th. So thanks again. Feel free to tell your friends if you have friends whose kids are applying, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.